on? Are we on? How is everybody?
Good, awesome. Good.
I have a microphone, and I have a, well, it was longer last week. All right, Gail, I can't get that close now. I'm getting over that way. If I get some more room, that would be awesome. How is everybody? Special shout out to He's Alive. You guys did great tonight.
Yeah.
One of the things that I really love to see is the youth get involved, especially in serving in this kind of capacity, where they can get involved and actually use their faith in their hands, because they're actually doing something with it. And kids need to be able to do that. And I just think it's awesome that you have leaders that come out from the church, and the church supports them to come out. So it's really, really cool to see. I am especially excited because tonight, I'm going to get a little bit more room. Today's a special day. Not only has it been since September since I've preached a message here at Opportunity House Narrowgate, which is too long of a time if you ask me, but today's also the Final Four kickoff. Who's got their brackets picked out? Nobody's got their brackets picked out? What is it, like $1 billion or something now if you get it right? Nobody's ever gotten it right? Nobody watches basketball? Did anybody watch the Tar Heels and Duke play? Anybody? Now you can hear me. There we go. Duke and Tar Heels. Who's with me? Who would like to see them in the Final Four?
Carolina.
Going down to the last shot, right? It's the bracket, people. It's time. This is exciting. These are when kids get to play ball, show their talents, and really do something really cool with themselves, And it's all about teamwork, and it's all about going out and proving yourself and having an opportunity. So I think it's just really, really exciting, especially when you have the underdogs being able to take out the big guys, right? Because it's only a ranking number. Who comes up with that stuff? I don't know. But I'm especially excited tonight here, also for the fact that what did you guys eat on? I'll be honest with you, I've been praying for plates for 2 years. And you can ask Ashley and Eddie, who's been there probably pounding the dishes now, with utensils. I mean, that is so important. Real people, real food, real plates. If you're going to be our guest, we have to put out the best, right? I can't eat with that little plastic thing that bends all over the place, and you stick the thing, and the fork bends, and your hand is like way too big for the thing. Oh, it just drives me so. I am so happy to have plates. You guys ain't feeling it though, I'm telling you. I ain't feeling it. Okay, that's good, that's good. That's awesome. Well, tonight is kind of a little bit of a special night because a couple of weeks back, I was scheduled to preach, and it was one of our last times over at Forest Hill in Concord. And I pinched a nerve in my neck, and I was having some pain going down my shoulder and down my arm, and I couldn't even do it. And I was like, Pastor Jim, I called him in the afternoon, and I said, I can't do it. I can't even concentrate. Like, this is just hurting too much. So that was the first time I've ever declined an opportunity to preach, but I'm back. I'm not feeling great, but God's going to get me through this.
Oh, yeah.
And this is going to happen. Tonight's topic that I'm going to preach on tonight is one that I've had for a long time. And if you know me at all, I have a message that stays with me until I get it out of me. And it just keeps building. So, I mean, we might be here 90 more minutes if you got the time. Okay? Is that okay, Dennis? 90 minutes?
Do it, baby. I'm timing.
All right, that sounds good. But actually, Pastor Thad, tonight's message came from a challenge a couple of months ago, actually, from Pastor Jim, when he made the statement before he brought the message that night, that the Old Testament was born. The Old Testament is hard. It's hard to understand. There's culture involved. There's things that happen in the Old Testament that, frankly, we'll just probably never understand. How things work and how things happen. But there are some stories that are in there that God has given us to write down and to live by. And there are movies waiting to be made. We've got some cool movies that have come out about the Bible and some of the characters that's in it and some of the people and the time. And there's going to be more. And tonight's message is a message that I've never preached on, but every pastor does, at least once in his time frame. And before you check out, because I know you will, because I'm watching for this, Pastor Dan, I'm just going to watch, okay? Tonight's message is coming from David and Goliath. Oh, look. They already checked out. I know. We have heard this story. Everybody's in here has heard this story. But I think I have something that God's given me that's going to be for someone. I don't know if it's going to be for everyone, but I do know it's going to be for someone. So are you with me?
Yes.
You guys ready?
Yes.
All right, if you have your Bibles, I want you to turn to 1 Samuel 15:17. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of read, we're going to explain a little bit, and we're just going to kind of go from there, okay? That's kind of how I do things. But before we begin, I'd like to pray, and then we're just going to dig in, Jack, okay? Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for this day, Lord. We just thank you for this time. We just thank you for the passion of the volunteers that have come and the urge to be able to come in and give up their time to serve others. Lord, what a great experience that is. What a great honor it is to be able to do that, Lord. And I thank each and every one of them. Lord, I pray for the folks that have come through this door. I pray for the folks that have already left. Lord, that they are full. But I'm thankful for the ones that are here for their spiritual food as well. They will never go hungry because they're already hungry for your knowledge, for your ways of life. And Lord, I thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to be able to bring this message, Lord. I know that it's not probably for everyone, but I know it's for someone, and that makes it honorable and enough to do. Lord, speak through me. Calm the pain that's in my arm right now so that I can concentrate and bring you the message this evening. Lord, we love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, chapter 17. It says, Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled in Socoh and Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes-Dammim between Socoh and Ezekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle line to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley in between them. So we have the scene. We have one on one side, one on the other. The battle takes place in the middle, down in the valley. One thing that we can try to do while we read our Bibles is to kind of put ourselves in it. When we're reading God's Word to help us understand a little bit better, is what does it sound like? What does it feel like? What is the culture like? So that we can better understand what is taking place. These are two battle zones. These are armies experienced in this great battle. Both on a side, ready to go. Right, Jack? A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. He was over 9 feet tall. In some of the verses in here in the translation says 9'9". That is a big man. He's probably not one of the basketball players, right? 180 pounds, he's probably a big dude. He's got some weight. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. 5,000 shekels is about 125 pounds. Bronze, shiny. It's on his body for protection. 125 pounds. I've only got about 25 pounds on his armor. That's it. I'm about 160 pounds. On his legs, he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. Bronze things on his legs to protect his legs, all the way down to his ankles. He was totally covered in armor. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod. A weaver's rod is like a large 12 to 15 foot-long pole that a weaver would make fabric with. And that thing usually weighed about 15 pounds, so he's carrying that as well. Its iron point weighed 600 shekels. That's another 15 pounds. So this javelin, this spear thing, is 30 pounds. His shield bearer went ahead of him. But really? He couldn't handle that too? I mean, he's got everything. He's got to have the other guy carry his stuff for him, right, for that. But he's got a lot of stuff on him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? I am not a Philistine, and you are not the servants of Saul." Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then the Philistines said, "This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Now David was the son of an Ephraite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons. Everyone say 8 sons.
8 sons.
We don't have anything in terms of daughters, but he's got 8 boys. That's probably a big house, right? Probably wild in the summer. In Saul's time, he was old and well advanced in years. Jesse's 3 oldest sons. 3 oldest sons. Everyone say 3.
3.
3 oldest sons followed Saul to the war. The firstborn was Eliab. The second, Abinadab. And you thought Cam Newton invented the dad. It's right there. It's 2,000 years ago. We got it there. And then the third was Shammah. David was the youngest. Everyone say youngest.
Youngest.
He was the boy. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend to his father's sheep in Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine came forward. Everyone say 40 days.
40 days.
40 days. Came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. Now Jesse said to his son David, "Take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of the unit. See how your brothers are and bring back some assurance for them. Bring back some encouragement. Bring back a good word. See how your brothers are doing." He wants an update. There was Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. Verse 20. Early in the morning, David left the flock with the shepherd, loaded up, and set out, as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to the battle position, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and greeted his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine, champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance. Champion. That means he's been tested. That means he's got experience. He's not new at this. He's the best of the best, the champion. When the Israelites saw the man, they ran from him in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family, his father's family from the taxes in Israel." Sounds like a politician right there to me, doesn't it? David asked the man standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They repeated to him what he had been saying, and they told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep with?" That's a family brawl about to happen right there. I mean, you got brothers and sisters, you've been on car rides when you were growing up, right? I always thought that my dad was like a superhero because, you know, when we were driving too far, my dad would, you know, be in the car and he would tell you when it was time to start calming down back there because, you know, you kids get a little rambunctious. You fight over the thing on the floor and looking out the window, all that kind of stuff. And my dad had this ability that it didn't even matter if you were in a station wagon, man. He could reach it. Like his arm kind of came out of the socket and swung around, and all he needed was a knuckle on you. That was it. I mean, you straightened up right then. And that's what's happening here. It's rivalry between the brothers. David says, "Now what have I done? Can I even speak?" How many of us have said that to one of our kids, right? "Mom, come on. Can I even say a word?" Then he turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and was reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." That's bold right there. David's making a statement. I think his mind's already made up at this point. Verse 33, Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been fighting men from his youth." You know, anytime that we're going to do something for God, a lot of times it's not going to make any sense. A lot of times we put our own spin on things and we argue with God, and we actually stay away from the calling that God has put on our lives. I remember years ago when God called me into student ministry, I was serving with the children's ministry with my wife, who just hounded me until I went in. And I didn't even like my own kids for the most part, but here I am, loving on the kids from the church. I didn't feel that was my place. I didn't know anything about kids or anything, but it didn't make sense to me, so I kept pushing it off. And eventually, I couldn't run from it anymore. So student ministry kind of was my calling, and I did that for many, many years. But a lot of times, it doesn't make sense to us. A lot of times, people will talk us out of it. What a great way to do that, from keeping somebody from doing what they're called to do. You can't do that. Why would you do something like that? You're going to take time off. They're just going to volunteer you out to death. How long you got? You can't do this forever. You already got a full-time job. People will talk you out of your calling. True? Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against the Philistine and fight this man. You are only a boy." I used to tell my students all the time, don't let anybody look down on you because you're young. Your faith is as important as your grandmother's. There comes a time in your life when you have to live out your faith and not your grandmother's faith. Your faith is your own. You have to own it. It's your calling. But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off the sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by the hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them because he has defied the armies of the living God.
Amen.
The Lord will deliver me from the paw of the lion, and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened on his sword over his tunic, and he tried walking around because he was not kind of used to them and what made for him. "I cannot go in these," he said, Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, and he put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag. And with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "I am a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord God Almighty, the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give you the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that this is not by sword or spear, that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you all that is in your hands." As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly towards the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and he killed him. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword and drew it from the scabbard. And he killed him. He cut off his head with his own sword. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and they ran. Then the men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of God, to the gates of Ekron. Their dead were strewn along the road. When the Israelites returned from the chase of the Philistines, they plundered their camp. David took the Philistine's head and brought it to Jerusalem, and he put the Philistines' weapons in his own tent. It's kind of like it's my reward. This is my display, right? It's like a deer head being in the den that you've shot, right? It's awesome. So as Saul watched David going out to meet the Philistine, he said to Abner, "Commander of the army, Abner, whose son is that young man?" And Abner replied, "As surely as you live, O king, I don't know." The king said, "Find out whose son this young man is." And as soon as David returned from the killing of the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with David still holding the Philistine's head. He had him by the hair. "Whose son are you, young man?" Saul asked him. And David said, "I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem." That is a great, great story with so many examples. But we're going to change a gear here. You guys ready? Yeah. Saul was a great king. Saul was handsome. He had money. He was wealthy. He had a kingdom. He was a good man. He had God's favor for years. Like most people with a lot of money and a lot of wealth and a lot of things, they kind of go self-centered, right? There's a period where he starts to go away from God. There's a period where he doesn't want anything to do with God. And God shuts him off. He goes out of God's favor. It says in the Bible that there was an evil spirit that was placed on him. But Saul was a great king. But God wanted a different king. So God appointed a prophet to come. And the prophet went to Jesse's house. And I always think about Jesse, as, the guy from Dukes of Hazzard. Jesse, he's got the beard, he's an older man. He's got 8 boys, he's really nice. He helps everybody. That's Jesse. But Jesse's got 8 boys. And the first boy, I kind of look at him, handsome fella. He's got tree trunk legs, big man, 6'5". He's got a courageous, beautiful smile that just brings everybody in, kind of like Cam Newton, right? Cam's good for that kind of stuff, but he's the oldest. He's seasoned in battle. He's been beaten up. He's had scars. He's a great leader. He'd be an obvious choice for a man to pick. But God said it wasn't him. I probably would have picked him. He had the most experience out of the brothers if they were going to pick from his family. But isn't it also true that we judge a person by the outside?
Oh, yeah.
We don't look at the stuff that's on the inside. They say that if you're waiting for God to open a door, how you wait in the hallway matters. What you sow in the dark is going to be revealed in the light.
Oh, yeah.
Who you are when nobody is looking matters.
Say so now.
That matters. There was something wrong with the oldest son. He maybe had a character flaw of some type. He wasn't the leader that God wanted because he saw the inside. His second son, fast, 6'2", maybe a little bit smaller, a little bit wider. He could carry a team on his back. He could carry the whole army. He probably looked like Luke Kuechly. He could do all kinds of things. He could carry the whole team. But God said, no, that's not it. He's not the one. So the third son comes in. Looking him over. He probably is a little shorter fella. He's younger. He's fast. He's good with his feet. Good with his hands. He's kind of like Christian McCaffrey, right? Well, the women liked that part. But guess what? He wasn't it. God said that wasn't it. So God asked the prophet, Jesse, do you have anybody else? You have 8 boys. Well, who's the youngest? So he calls for his son David. And David is out in the shepherd's field out there with the sheep, right? It doesn't seem like it's too much of a big deal, but that's his father's business. He's the youngest. And he's taking care of the family business. When something happens, when there's an animal that comes by, he takes care of it. He's not a boy, but he's not a man. He's somewhere in between. He's got nice hair, it's kind of curly, a little bit long, maybe a little bit on the skinny side, kind of like Justin Bieber maybe, right? He was the one. God didn't look on the outside. That was not who everybody wanted to be picked. He was the youngest. So Jesse sends him into battle to go bring some supplies. Take this cheese to your brothers and the commander. Take this bread. Little did he know that oftentimes the things that are little, the things that seem insignificant, that God trusts you with, lead to bigger things. He was delivering cheese. He was the next king. They already told him he was the next king. He already knew that. But yet he was still doing the little things. So he goes to the front line. And he's wanting to bring some encouragement to his brothers. Brothers, how are you? How are everybody doing? And his older brother, character flaw, doesn't even want to talk to him. What are you doing here? You just come to see the battle? What's happening here? Why'd you come out here? Why don't you just go back to your few sheep? And David takes offense to that. So as David was standing there, he hears a noise. He hears the calling. It's on the other side of the valley. Goliath is standing out in defiance. Goliath is taunting him, the whole army. You ain't got nothing. Why don't you send somebody over here and we'll get this thing done? 40 days, day and night, he would come out and say, you're never going to amount to anything. You're never going to win. I am the champion. We outnumber you. There is no way that you can win. Send me one person. We'll do this easy. You send me one person and we'll fight to the end. If I lose, we become your slaves. If you win, we become your slaves, and we'll just call it done. The Israelites were scared. They didn't like that. They didn't know what to do. For 40 days, they sat and listened to him taunt him. But see, he made a mistake. Goliath not only called them weak and losers and never going to amount to anything, but he also defied God. And that was personal to David. See, Goliath and the Philistines didn't know God. They worshiped their own idols. They had their own gods. And when David heard that, he had his calling. He had his moment. It was too much. It was too far. So he called him out. Saul brought him in. He tried on some things. It just wasn't working. It's not his place. It's just not my stuff. I can't do this. We're going to do it God's way. I have the tools. Many of you have the tools to do the things that God's called you to do already. Just like David. He goes with what he has. He picks up the 5 stones that he gets from the brook. They're all nice and smooth and shiny. He puts them in his shepherd's bag, and he goes to the front line. And he makes his announcement. Your day has come. This is it. I am taking you down. I am going to cut off your head, and I am going to let the birds and the beasts feast on you and your army. You defied my God, my living God. And that's it. That enraged Goliath. Goliath stepped out, had a few more things to say. He walked a little further out. Now he sees him as a boy. You didn't even send me a man to fight. You sent me Justin Bieber lookalike with a stick. He's angry. Eyes rage. He's sweating. He takes off running. David turns. He takes off running. He knows what the assignment is. 50 yards apart. Both men are running towards each other. 40 yards apart. It's getting closer. Eyes are raging. Sweat is running. Goliath is breathing heavy. He's got all of his stuff. He's got armor on, leg armor, helmet, sword. He's got it all. David has a stone. 35 yards. David reaches into his pocket. 30 yards. David is winding up. 30 yards. 25 yards. They can smell each other now. At 20 yards, David lets loose the stone out of his sling. It hits Goliath square in the forehead. Right here. The Bible said it sunk into his head, into his skull. It was the only place that he could have hit Goliath to do any damage whatsoever. And he hit him squarely. Goliath went down. He was down on his knees. He probably fell face first, I would imagine, right? That's the way I kind of look at it, the way I see it, played in my mind. He fell down. David finished by pulling out his sword, and he cut his head off, like he said he was going to do. It's an amazing story of a comeback and confidence. It's an amazing story of all the temptations that are in your life that you can overcome. Pastor Thad, tomorrow at Op House, the question for tonight, and the question for y'all tonight is what is your Goliath? What is that thing that you get up to every single morning that's just taunting you over and over and over again? You're never going to quit drugs. Why do you even bother? You stay off for a little while, then you come right back to it. So why are you even doing it? That job that you go to, why do you keep going back to that job? Never going to appreciate you there. Never going to make the money you think you deserve. Why even bother looking for a job? Maybe your Goliath is the medical report. Maybe it's that thing that's hanging over you. Maybe your Goliath is the scale in the morning, where you just can't seem to get away from it. That no matter what you do, you can't lose any weight. Maybe your Goliath is, I've been divorced, why should I even bother with a relationship again? Why should I even bother with kids when one of my kids ran off or started using drugs and I don't know where they are? Why should I even bother with the other ones? What is your Goliath? We all have one here.
Yes, true.
But I'm here to tell you, friends, that you can overcome that because God is fighting your battles for you.
Oh, yes.
Goliath didn't know any of that. And little David, 9'9" giant, went down because God was fighting the battles. And I'm here to tell you, people, friends, that God can fight your battles with you if you let Him. I see a lot of you come in each week. Some of you look tired. Some of you are energized. Some of you are worn down from life. Kids are bugging you. You're struggling with different things. And you want to change. And it's the hardest thing that you can do. Sometimes you don't even know how to change or what to change or even what. Sometimes we scream out, and it's okay to ask God. It's okay to be angry with God because you want answers. You're seeking Him so that you can do these changes. You're never going to take down your Goliath. He is going to taunt you forever until you get God on your side to crush Him. I want to challenge you for the rest of the week to identify your Goliath and make plans to take his head off. Cut them off. That way you can move forward. Smokey, do you have another song? Okay. As the band comes up, I'd like to close us in prayer. There's a a Michael W. Smith song that I was thinking about this afternoon. It doesn't have many song words to it. I don't know exactly what you call that, Gail. Lyrics or something, I don't know. It's Michael W. Smith. It says, "Fight my battles," if you've never heard that song. And there's only like a couple of verses, I guess, that's in it. And it says, "That's how we fight our battles. This is how I fight my battles. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles." Father, Lord, we just thank you for this night. We just thank you for the story of David and Goliath, Lord, the courage that it took to have the faith to lean on you, to trust you wholly and do something boldly. Even if it doesn't make sense, Lord, this is what faith is all about. There will be people that when we want to take a step forward, there are people that want us to take 2 steps back. They'll talk us out of our calling and keep us from being close with you. If we're not close with you, it's hard to have a blessing from you. Lord, I pray for the folks that are here this evening that are battling and fighting their Goliath and listening to the taunting and the things that they can't do and shouldn't do and won't be able to do. And Lord, those are all lies. Satan knows us. He knows our temptations. He knows our weaknesses. Lord, help us with that. Help us lean on you and trust you fully. Lord, thank you for David to give us a great example. He went on to be a great king and a great man with your heart. Lord, we thank you for that. Lord, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Brothers and sisters, thank you
I love